It's the Sunset Island Music Show, bringing you bands from everywhere on the planet.
Yeah! Perfect.
With your host, Frankie V.
Hey, what's going on? It's Frankie V from the Sunset Island Music Show, and I got a chance to sit down and chit-chat today with Mark Lanoue. If you don't know who Mark Lanoue is in a couple of bands, Fiction 6 and a supergroup called Kick the Wicked, which they formed during COVID times when not a lot was going on. Mark has played with everybody. He's played with Richie Sambora, guys from King Cobra, guys with XYZ, the Babies, John Wade and Jonathan Cain from Journey, The Firm, which is of course Paul Rogers and Jimmy Page, Nazareth, Blue Murder, Vinnie Moore, you name it. This guy's played with them, and never got to meet him before, and was just talking to him today, and lo and behold, we find out that we used to run around in the same places at the same time back when I started my career in Orlando, and we went to shows at the same place. I probably have seen him play, and probably have met him in the past 25, 30 years ago. And it was fun chit-chatting and walking down memory lane with him. But I hope you enjoy this. It's my conversation with Mark Lanoue. It's a special interview edition of the Sunset Island Music Show. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Frankie V from the Sunset Island Music Show here with a very special guest today. I've got Mark Lanoue with me. Mark Lanoue, I can't even say where you're from because you have so many things going on. We'll get into all that. But if you don't know anything about Mark, you're going to know a lot about him today. This guy's not only a musician, he's a professor, he's a PhD professor. He's been in bands and played with everybody from the past, from the present, from probably the future as well, in a couple of bands. And let me start out by saying this. We'll start at the very, very beginning. You have the coolest birthday I've ever heard in my life. His birthday is 6/6/66, June 6th of 1966. I mean, that would scare the hell out of some people having that birthday, but seems like it works pretty well for you, huh?
Yeah, well, the only thing that could have topped it, I guess, if I was born at 6, right? So
yeah, but that would make you it would be a heck of an interview through your oxygen tube and stuff.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, that's pretty cool. So you're a Jersey boy, huh?
Yeah, I was originally born in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Matter of fact, the hospital that I was born at, they actually tore it down. I don't know if it's because they found that I was born there or not, but yeah.
Yes, who knows? They didn't shave the little spot on your head like they did on the Omen movie, did they?
No, all that long hair that used to be down to my waist just fell out by Mother Nature. So
yeah,
no
luckily mine used to be that way too, but luckily I still have a good head up on top. It's turning gray by the day, but that just comes with the age.
That's right. That's right.
So let's talk about your music. You have played with everybody, it seems. I mean, just to name a very small few. Richie Sambora, guys from King Cobra, guys from YYZ, the Babies, The Firm, Nazareth, Blue Murder. I mean, my gosh, who haven't you played with?
Yeah, well, so a lot of the players that I've played with are part of those bands. Like, for instance, Richie Sambora, I was actually on an album that had some bonus tracks on it. The singer that I was with at the time, this is before I knew I could sing. I was the guitar player primarily, but he had like a beautiful Italian voice. His name was Dean Fasano, and he played with bands with Richie Sambora called Mercy and Message, and he sang on. Is
this pre-Bon Jovi?
This is pre-Bon Jovi. So that stuff, the actual bonus tracks were on a really cool CD called Message Live. So it was live performances of Mercy, Message is what their name was later, touring with Joe Cocker. And that was like in the I think it was 1980, 81, somewhere in that time frame. And so those tracks went on to only 200 were pressed, and it had all the live tracks, and then it had 2 bonus tracks with Dean singing on them, and there were songs that I played on and wrote. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, Richie's a great guy. I've texted and chatted with him a number of times, and I met him several times, and we sat down, talked about things like, my daughter versus his daughter, and we were kind of sharing pictures and all that kind of stuff. So just recently, actually, that was several years ago with my buddy Bruce Foster, who played on the first Kiss album, who played with Richie as well, and played on a
Read
number of
about
my
that as
songs.
well.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a quick story about that, which is beautiful. So Bruce
Sure.
was telling me that when they were in the studio recording the debut record for Kiss, he played on the song "Nothing to Lose," and he does that Jerry Lee Lewis kind of keyboard part. He says his
They broke
finger.
that one out of the Unplugged reunion. I remember that back in '91.
Yeah, and he was bleeding on one of his fingers, and there was blood all over the keyboard, but he couldn't stop because they were recording the song.
Yeah.
Gene walks in and looks over the top and goes, "Now that's rock and roll."
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but there's a lot. I've been blessed, honored to play with a lot of players. Been on a lot of recordings with other, rock stars. My first Fiction 6 record had Tony Franklin, who played with The Firm with Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
He played, and that was the Bad Company singer. Paul Rogers was also in The Firm. And he played on the first Fiction 6 record. But the guy who played guitar and produced it he was in King Cobra and XYZ, and really great guitar player, great producer. His name's J.K. Northrup. And my new bass player for Fiction 6, which we're on a hiatus right now because we put out 3 records so far. But new bass player was at Montrose and King Cobra, smoking bass player.
Montrose with Sammy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So how did you get to know these people? Were they just guys from the neighborhood or through the business, or how did you come across all these guys?
So I'm a typical Gemini. I get everywhere. I go everywhere, and I make sure I'm there. But first of all, I learned how to play the guitar really well, and I have to say that I look back at and listen to old tracks of me from the the late '80s and early '90s and go, oh, can I still play that? Like, holy crap!
Right.
So I was noticed for my playing, but I also ended up in the right places at the right time. Recording at the famous studio in West. I'm trying to remember. It's in New Jersey. And it was where like Kool and the Gang and the Cars and a bunch of really,
Nice.
Paul Abdul, House of Music was the name of it. And I recorded there with Elvis Presley's piano player, who also did the soundtrack for Legend with Tom Cruise. That guy he ended up playing on stuff for me later. His name is Shane Keister. He's a great guy. He's out of Nashville. He's probably played on just about every country song you've heard. He plays keys. He's just an amazing player. But yeah, you kind of run into these people, and you just approach everybody without an ego, and you show them what you do, what you write, and if they're willing to work with you, that's a blessing, right? So
that's a good lesson to learn for everybody, no matter what they're doing in life.
Yeah.
Number
exactly.
one, it kind of still goes back to it's who you know, not what you know necessarily, and being in the right place at the right time. But yeah, like you said, presenting yourself without an ego. I mean, Lord knows there's been plenty of people that have come around, again, whatever business you're in, and they could be the greatest at that business in the world. But if they're the biggest arrogant jerk you ever met, you're not going to give them the time of day. But if you're down to earth and you're just, hang out with somebody and willing to talk and willing to learn, hey man, the possibilities are endless with anything.
Yeah, I love to learn from everybody. Music, I take a different approach. Like, I'm that guy who's watching a band that may totally blow, but I'm looking at that bass player. I mean, so there's always something to find, even in the clumps of garbage. There's always something there that you can learn from, and something that you can be positive to kind of point in at. Just like you were boosting my ego earlier. I don't have my PhD yet. I'm getting my PhD, but I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
Well, congratulations prematurely then.
But when I worked for NASA, I was called Dr. Lanoue all the time, to the point where it was just like, whatever, call me whatever you want.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And I know what you mean about the music, because let's get something out of the way first. I by no means am any kind of musician. I dabbled with the drums back in high school because it was cool and it was a good way to meet women and stuff like that. But I am definitely no musician. But I'm the same way, man. I can go to concerts or I can listen to music that everybody's heard a million times. I don't know one word to the song, but I could sing the bass line for you. Or like, you know, some of those old, like one of my favorite bands in the 80s was White Lion, and Vito
Oh yeah.
Bratta, who played guitar for them. I could sing you every single notes of every one of his guitar solos before I could sing one of the lyrics of the song.
Yep. He was a
And
memorable
that's,
player.
oh my
Absolutely.
gosh.
Yeah.
I'm the same way with drummers, with everybody. It's just like your mind gets focused on the one instrument. I do it when I see bands live too. Everybody's goo-gooing and gaga over the singer and stuff like that. And I'm just blinders on watching the drummer, especially like my favorite drummers and stuff. It's unbelievable, man. It's cool to have that ear for stuff. So you mentioned NASA. Okay, I'm very, very curious about this. You are in the NASA Space Technology Hall of Fame, correct?
That's correct. I was inducted in 2005. I was given this honker of a medal that was given to me by a general and an astronaut. And I tell you, when they put that around my neck, you can take that thing and you could take out a league, like an army, man. You could it's like, holy, I was weightlifting a lot at the time. So luckily because when it run around in my neck, I was like, oh yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah.
I wish this was gold.
Got the weight on it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was inducted for a technology that I invented along with a team. You know, I always have to bring the other people in as well. It was something called hyperspectral imaging, and I won't go too deep into that because it starts to get into electromagnetic spectrum and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's way out of my pay range. Way out of my league, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that was it was really, really cool. But it did allow me to go out and do lots of travel, you know, with the instrumentation and with the science. Like, for instance, that thing behind me on the wall there, that's actually a tonka. That's from Tibet. That was actually hand painted.
Really?
Back there there was one of the colleagues over there. He was Chinese, and we went up there to go to do some work and to see about maybe imaging the sacred scrolls of the Dalai Lama at the palace.
It sounds like one of those like Indiana Jones movies or something.
Yeah. What's funny is I'm outside of my hotel with butter tea, right? You know, like staring up at the Dalai Lama's palace. It's like, man, that's like a really white building, you know. And then I found out later the reason why it's white is they donate holy stuff every year, like flour and butter. Butter's considered to be holy. And so butter,
really,
flour, sugar, and they actually paint the building with that stuff.
With butter, huh?
Butter and flour and sugar, and they just paint. That's why it's white. It's like I was asking my colleagues, should I lick it? Is it gonna be sweet or? You know?
I was gonna say there's some of these unhealthy Americans over here that would love to live in that. Here they only build those out of gingerbread at Christmas time, you know?
Yeah, that's the biggest Twinkie I've ever seen. Hey, yo, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I go over visit the Dalai Lama to lick the side of his building just to have a taste, you know? That's crazy, but that's cool that it got you to be able to travel the world and do all that stuff, you know? It's, you know, where you like giving talks and public speaking and talking about NASA and technology and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I spun off and I became a CEO and a CTO for a company, and I traveled around the world and installed high-tech instrumentation, trained people. I had to, you know, everything from, I traveled all over China, Japan, AstraZeneca. I worked with them in the UK. Went to Sweden. I had a story in Sweden. So I went to Sweden, right? And I came out of this little airport in Linköping. And when you get off the aircraft, it's like a farmer's market. There's like no security. There's like sheep walking by you and stuff. And it's like, hey, would you like a carrot? You know, but so I walk out of here and I'm going to go to my hotel. And I notice when I'm walking down the street, it's like, oh, there's a music store right here in the middle of this little village, right? So I walk into the music store and they recognize me from my band Biloxi that I was in at the time. We had just performed at Rocklahoma not long before. Matter of fact, Extreme was there. They reunited, and my old friends from Trickster from New Jersey were there. They were playing.
I remember Trickster.
Yeah. I'm good friends with Pete, with Steve, Gus Man.
Give it to me good and Surrender. I remember I had that album. That was my era.
Yeah, I was there when they pulled their first bus up in front of Steve's house in Paramus. I was so I was so jealous, man. They had like they had the bus and they were getting ready to go on the road and hit it. So, but yeah, so getting back to Sweden, I walk into the store and they recognized me and they had me sit down and play songs and sing for like about an hour and had me sign autographs and stuff. And then I
Really?
was like,
Hey,
then I went back out and went right back to my regular technology gig, went to the hotel and went the next day and met with the company and sold them an instrument
I can see
flew
you
back.
doing that. You head over to New Delhi with NASA, and you're doing a big speaking engagement during the day, and then everybody goes back to the hotel, and you throw on your leathers and your skull cap and go get on stage and start jamming with
Yeah.
local Swedish bands and Kick the Wicked and all that. Which there are some great Swedish rock and roll bands.
Fantastic. There's some great musicians too. So I was inspired on guitar. One of them was Yngwie Malmsteen. He's out of Sweden. There's another one named
Really?
John Norum from Europe. The band Europe
Yep.
is from that area, and and I'm the firstborn in the United States. I have relatives who are for Dutch, so not too far off from there. And
No kidding.
but it's really great. The whole technology thing. That's what the Fiction 6 albums. That's what the second album, The Alternate Me, was about. It's the alternate me. It's the two sides of the Gemini. One side is the music side, and the other side is the technological and business side.
Technological, almost doctor side.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what you just brought up, is that whole thing, the alternate me. And then my philosophical statement is always, reality was once the tapestry of the dreamer, so we have to dream it and then we have to make it happen. So, and that's
I read somewhere you put that, I read an article that somebody wrote about you earlier today. And you said something about that point. You're like, it's just about dreaming and putting your mind to it. And you can't accomplish anything unless you dream about it first. And then
That's
you got
right.
to dream about it and, visualize it and just keep working toward it and go balls to the wall, heads towards it. And don't give up, man.
Exactly. Your body may give out eventually, but
Yeah.
you got to keep it going somehow.
You gotta keep it going. Exactly. Hell, my 30-second background, I started in radio back out of college in the early 90s. And I wanted to be this great rock and roll DJ. That was all I ever wanted to do since. And I can tell you this, two quick stories about Kiss. First album I ever bought on vinyl. The first thing I ever remember, I don't know if you remember these, when I was a kid in like the late 70s, early 80s, they had these things called big wheels. And it was a plastic thing with a wheel like a bike, but it was low to the ground. And we had a department store up the road. I believe the department store was called the Big Wheel too. And I rode my big wheel to the Big Wheel and bought Kiss Destroyer on vinyl. That was the first album I ever bought. Then fast forward to like 6th or 7th grade when I would spend all my free time at the roller skating rink. And I got the Kiss Animalize cassette. And I used to bring that in every Saturday to go roller skating and have the DJ there play Heaven's on Fire. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a DJ. It's because I could bring that guy and he could play the music I played. And I did it. I didn't do any research really on the career that I wanted, because as soon as I got out of college, this crazy thing called the internet came around and pretty much ripped my radio career right out from under me for a while. But like you said, man, I've always kind of stuck with it in the back of my mind. And that's what kind of inspired Mike and I to get this Sunset Island music thing going 10 years ago, and then kind of revamped it a little while ago, going, hey, if we're going to make a run at this, we're not getting any younger. Let's go for it, man. If we're going to go, let's go 120%. So thus now the TV station and everything else. So absolutely. I'm right there with you, man. Yeah, I saw your band went from Biloxi to Chasing Karma to Fiction 6.
That's right.
And then Kick the Wicked was what? That was another band. That was like a side project supergroup type of thing?
Well, Kick the Wicked actually was born out of, so in 2020, when the lockdown started really hitting hard and people were kind of stuck at home, we thought, my drummer from Fiction 6 and good friend of mine, Rory Fashion, he's a Nashville drummer, he called me up and he said, hey man, I got this friend in Orlando. We want to do covers. You want to sing on them, or come and be a part of it? I said, yeah, sure. Like I'm doing anything else all locked up in here in my garage. At that point,
it's just getting out of the house, right?
Yeah. So basically what happened is Scott is fantastic and talented. He plays guitar, he plays bass, he sings some, he does production that's really smoking. And so he plays keys too. I mean, it's just insane.
Guy
So
does everything.
yeah, so he says, so let's start off with a song. So we went for the punch. We did "Fight the Good Fight" by Triumph.
Nice.
And that was the first one, out of fun, it was really out of fun. And Scott hates the name, but it was, at the time, it was just to have fun, right? So we're on
Yeah.
Facebook, FaceTiming each other, and he said, well, how about name? I said, well, how about Farmer Bob? We're cropping out, we're harvesting new tributes out to everybody. So
Right.
so now we have like 50 tributes on there, and people are just really into them. And we do everything from Megadeth to the Bee Gees to Zebra to Kiss to you name it, it's on there. So if
Wow,
anybody goes on
cool.
YouTube and types in Farmer Bob and types in my last name Lanoue, they'll get this whole big thing of tributes that we've done. And we do them. I mean, when Scott gets the production going, he goes out and he's like out there studying what kind of drum sound is that supposed to have.
No kidding.
He gets down to the science, and it sounds great, And so we've been doing it. So what happened is we realized, it's like, we have really good chemistry. So let's do originals. So one day we're texting back and forth. Scott and I are texting back and forth. We're trying to come up with names for this new band. And I come up with Kick the Something. And he says, well, how about Kick the Wicked? And I was like, yeah, that's it, baby. That's it.
Yeah.
We became Kick the Wicked. And I have this Swedish, here back to Sweden. I got this Swedish artist who did all the covers and the booklets for Fiction 6. He does stuff for Iron Maiden and movie posters and all kinds of other stuff.
Remember back like when Maiden and Judas Priest and all those guys, Journey even, had the coolest artwork on their album covers?
That's right.
I mean, those things were amazing. I look back at them sometimes and go, man, I remember I used to have them hanging all over my wall,
Yeah. And this guy did the logo. And then we had to get the music out because we were getting ready for the Grammys. It was submitted for the Grammys last year, which is our EP Drag Magnet. It came out last August.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yet another thing you got going on.
We didn't get nominated because I found out later on, because, a lot of it's also, so I was up against Megadeth, Ozzy Osbourne, Muse, and so I was like, yeah, this Ghost was the other one. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna end up like, everybody's saying, you're so great, man, you're so great, you should win. And then that list came out. I was like, yeah, that ain't happening.
You were on the list, though. That's more than a lot of people can say,
So we came out with a new single called Firefly. It's really, really good. We did that right after the EP. We plan to submit that this year. And I'm also working with a Grammy-winning artist named Kit Wakely, who's also just recently worked with Orthani, and I think he worked with Joe Satriani not long ago, and was doing some really cool orchestrated kind of stuff. He plays on a Kansas tribute that we have on there. We did Carry On My Wayward Son. And he's also doing one with us right now. We're doing a Meatloaf tribute, 7-minute song. And we have like,
the Meatloaf songs were 7 minutes long.
Yeah, it sounded really, really awesome. But so, I'm really pleased with the music that came out of Fiction 6. It's really great stuff, but that's more progressive, melodic kind of rock stuff with lots of intricate playing. And I tell you a quick story about the keyboard player from Fiction 6, Eric Ranyo. He's played with everybody. He was playing with the Babies. He played with Jolyn Turner and Graham Bonnet from Rainbow. He's played with everybody. And I always make the joke with him. I said, does God call you up to play keys for him? And you play for everybody else.
Yeah.
So
did he play with the Babies like during the John Waite years or afterwards?
I think it was afterwards, I believe.
Because if he played keys, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Jonathan Cain from Journey in the Babies as well?
Yes, he was. And he went to Journey from there. That's correct.
Wow.
Yep.
God, and all these things intertwined. It's crazy.
And that's why I'm writing a book right now, and one of the basically the name of the book is The 6 Degrees of Fiction 6, and underneath it has the reality was once the tapestry of the dreamer. It's got that whole thing in there. I'm at page 81 right now, so I'm working on it. With
all your spare time, right?
Yeah, well, a number of my friends have been bugging me for years, and even other people that aren't direct friends, they say, "Man, you need to write a book." So I finally just said, I'll write a book.
You definitely have plenty of
Yeah.
material and plenty of stories for it. I'll tell you that.
Well, I got a great support system. My wife, Lisa, she's been supportive of everything I do for decades,
That
so,
helps.
uh, and, also it helps because we have, we just had our second grandchild came along. Well, we didn't have it, but, our daughter did, but, so,
Congratulations,
yeah,
Grandpa.
little serenity. Yeah, when people say that I have to go back and see where the Just for Men is, so I can go ahead and color out that beard again.
Nice. Oh God. Hey, what year we do? Should be in preschool. What's your grandpa do? I don't know. He's like he's an astronaut and a rock star. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, if you like Judas Priest and you like Iron Maiden, there also is a tribute. Aces High is on that former Bob list, and also "Living After Midnight" by Judas Priest is on that list too.
Classic.
So yeah, and I'm singing all of them. The last one I just sang was Zebra, and boy, I tell you what, that guy hit, and
You hit notes like Mark Jackson?
I
What
like
is his
Randy
name? Mark
Jackson.
Jackson,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
singer from Zebra?
Randy Jackson. If you look,
Randy.
so if you look it up on there, we did "Tell Me What You Want," and I hit that E6 note at the end.
Wow.
You need to go, and I mean, of course, Scott puts a nice little duck filter on there in case you might miss something somewhere, but it's
Right.
windowing. He doesn't tune me all, but we all get window tuned a little bit here and there. But
Yeah.
but I hit that note.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. Even me on the radio, I do a little EQ into the microphone every now and again. Especially if you're sick or something like that, you got to make yourself sound healthy somehow. Not too bad,
Yeah,
but you got to
that's
do what
right.
you got to
That's
do.
right. That's right.
Randy
Yes.
Jackson. God, he had a voice on him though. God, tell me what you want and who's behind the door. I mean,
Yeah.
holy moly! There's not a lot of people can hit notes like that. I'll tell you
No,
that.
no, he's a really nice guy too. Actually, all the guys from Zebra are really nice guys. So when I post, so my drummer Rory, he actually took lessons from, I think his name is Guy, the drummer from Zebra, for a period of time, because Rory used to live in Louisiana area, and Scott is actually from over in Louisiana. Scott was actually on a label that first started Lil Wayne back in the day.
Jeez, oh man.
So
You're 6 degrees to everybody. I swear to anybody who's ever been in the rock and roll scene.
well, my ex bandmate Carl Sentence, he sang for Crocus. He's singing for Nazareth now. I think they've done their second album. They're touring. I think they just toured in Russia, I think.
Really? I didn't even know Nazareth was still around.
Yeah, Carl actually has a great voice. He just put out also his solo album. Carl Sentence is his name. And what's great about that story is, so when I was in a band called Persian Risk back in the 90s, and it was Persian Risk USA. We were supposed to be signed by Sony International. We were looked at by Atlantic Records and several other big labels at the time. And we were touring around, and the singer, Carl Sentence, was actually the singer for Geezer Butler Band before that, from Black Sabbath. And
I was gonna say, yeah, let's throw out another legend.
So so it was looking like we were going to make it. It all fell apart, and then so Carl picked it up from there, and since then he's done really great with touring around and being in bands and putting out albums, and he has a really strong and smoking voice. So that's where I found out I had a voice. I was playing out with Persian Risk, and at the time there was a vocal teacher there who taught Janie Lane and a couple of the Backstreet Boys and stuff. And he walks up to me in outside when I came off the stage. He said, "Why are you singing behind anybody?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "I hear you singing back there." He says, "You got a voice. Here's my card. Come see me." And he probably does that to everybody, right? But anyway, I started taking lessons from him, and that's what gave me the courage to move up from behind the guitar and start really singing. So
again, right place, right time, and who you know.
That's right. And my wife then was my girlfriend, but my wife paid for my vocal lessons. So again, supporting me through the time. So yeah, it was great. That was Orlando, Florida. I remember there's articles saying they belong to Orlando now, but will soon be whisked away.
Well, and that seems like it was right at the years where I was working there, because I graduated high school or graduated college. I went to UCF for radio TV.
Oh, yeah.
Graduated in 95, and I worked for WHTQ, which was the classic rock station up there. It was Q96 when I started. but ended up at still WHCQ playing all that classic rock I was there for 8 or 9 years. And that was at the same time the station, it's when like WJRR was coming up. And, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all those guys were all coming up at that time,
Yeah. We played the Fern Park station. We played the.
Oh my God, the station.
We played the FBI. We played the Marquee in Orlando.
All those places.
We played at Universal at the Hard Rock up there. We played in front of the Elvis stained glass. We played there. Matter of fact, there was an award show going on. We were managed by the people who owned Jam magazine, and at the time the award show had Marilyn Manson. It had us. It had a number of other bands that were there at the time. I think it also had Jeff Blando, who ended up in Slaughter.
I know Blando.
Blando's great. Oh, Blandini? He's great, man.
Yeah.
So at the time, we were all the straight long-haired guitar players. It was me, Jeff LaRoche, and Jeff Blando. Jeff LaRoche ended up in Persian Risk with me at one time. And before us, our predecessor was actually Phil Campbell, who plays in Motorhead. He was the original guitar player for Persian Risk in England. So when Carl came over, we pulled the name over, or he pulled the name over, and we turned it to USA and went from there. But yeah, it's really great stuff, man. Like the spinning storyline.
Yeah, because Blando used to hang out at some of the bars that I hung out at, and I mean, he played with everybody in Orlando at that time, and then when Slaughter's guitarist unfortunately died, then he took over that. But God, you just brought back some memories, though. The old FBI, the Fairbanks Inn.
Did you go to Janie Lane Sunset Strip? Did you go to Janie Lane
Sunset Strip? I saw Saigon Kick there.
Yeah, we played there. A matter of fact, the bass player from Saigon Kick was in Left 4 Dead. And Left 4 Dead played that night, and we played that night along with Big Wide World. And in the audience was Tabitha's Secret, which was Rob,
who ended up in Matchbox
20. And so there's all that connectivity because when we tour around, we see each other. So we played the Button South in Hallandale. And that week we went over to Miami because Black Sabbath had Motorhead opening with them, and then in front of them was Morbid Angel. So we stopped at the Miami Arena. We're partying with Motorhead, right?
The old Miami Arena.
Yeah.
The old crappy one.
Yeah. So I'm out by the bathroom, and who's in it? Here we are standing around talking. It's Marilyn Manson with his like one contact lens,
right.
and the guitar player from Morbid Angel. It was Jen from the Jenna Tortures. And it was me, and there was one other cat there, but it was just so funny to have that group, in just out there in front of the Miami Arena talking.
Jen's from this area too. I'm in Sarasota right now. She's from right up the road. Jenna Torch has been playing God since I was a kid. But it's funny you say that about Tabitha's Secret, because I always tell people that the first bar I ever worked at was a little Irish bar called Devaney's. It was up on by UCF there.
Yeah,
a little Irish place, but we'd have bands there. I was a DJ, the house DJ there, and while I was working at HCQ, and we'd have bands play. And I mean, normally it was just little, bands that wouldn't bring much of a setup. All of a sudden, they booked this band called Tabitha's Secret, and we're like, "Who the hell are these guys?" And they start showing up, checking out the place, and I remember Rob coming up to me while I was, and I used to play like booty music, dance music. It was a college bar, Rob coming up to me and the guy from, Gum Rapper Curb, they were hanging out together, trying to get me to play their music while I was DJing. And I was like, I'm not playing that crap, man. And no way, people are dancing. So Tabitha's Secret shows up to play Devaney's, and they got we used to call it the Lollapalooza lighting rig. Because everybody'd show up with a couple of lights and drums and a couple little half stacks and stuff like that. Well, I mean, this place wasn't 50 by 150 feet long, and they brought lighting trusses and all this stuff and all this crap, put on a heck of a show, but we didn't know who they were. They were one of our college bars.
Yeah.
Fast forward like a year and a half later, I'm sitting in the same bar having a beer, and we're watching the Grammy Awards. And there's Rob winning the Song of the Year for Smooth with Carlos Santana. And we're like, son of a bitch. He was just here last year, and we didn't give him the time of day. But, Yeah, it's funny. I tell people that story. I'm like, I knew those guys. The same thing with Creed. Creed kind of adopted Orlando as their hometown, even though they're from
Right.
Tallahassee.
Yeah.
They used to play there all the time, and I mean, it's like some of the kids. Well, some of the kids now don't even listen to them because they're way younger than us. But
Sure.
some of the people, I'm like, man, I used to see these guys in tiny little bars when I grew up, and now they're, $80 a ticket to go sit on the lawn at the amphitheater to watch them. It's funny.
Yeah, we would see them all the time because when you're touring on the circuit, especially when you're coming up and down up to Atlanta and you're coming back down around through Tallahassee and over to Jacksonville and back down to
Right.
Miami, we'd run into them all the time because we would cross over. Like we play a week, right, and then the other band would come in and we'd hang out.
Yep.
We'd do a party and then they'd play and then we'd move off to our next gig. And
you were hitting all the bigger cities that were college towns too, because I mean that's
Yeah, I played across
Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami. I mean, all of them.
I played the Junction in Gainesville, right across from the university. That's another place that we played. We played a place called Planet Rock that was also over there. I think it was in West Palm, maybe. But yeah, we played in all those places. Some of them were great and grandiose. Some had really nice band houses, and others were like, who's pulling the straw to sleep there?
Yeah,
depending on where you were going.
God, ever since you mentioned it, I can't stop thinking about the station in Fern Park. Holy crap! I saw so many shows there; it's ridiculous.
I lived right down. I lived right there.
Front of it was a train car. Remember that?
Yeah. I lived right there in those apartments. Right, if you drove a little bit further down and went into the parking lot, that's where I lived.
No kidding. We used to go to Highlight across the street every now and then.
Yeah. I won some money there once.
Yeah, well, we'd go because they had like 75-cent beers, and we'd go get those over there, especially when we were underage and had fake IDs.
Yeah, you couldn't go across the street. You weren't old enough yet.
Yeah, and then we'd go into the basement for some shows. God, that is awesome. That is awesome. I love talking about those old Orlando days because people don't get it. I mean, Orlando back in the 90s was the hotbed for music. They were calling it the next, LA and all that stuff.
Yeah,
you had
Seven Mary 3.
Seven Mary 3, yeah. Man,
they were in our management.
Say what you want to say, but Britney, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, all those guys, God bless them all different kinds of music. But, I know I had some friends that were making fun of Justin and how, Justin from NSYNC and Howie from the Backstreet Boys and stuff like that. Then they'd see him on TV with, 80,000 screaming little girls that would throw themselves at their feet. And I'm like, yeah, who's laughing now? We're still sitting here drinking a $2 beer at the bar,
I played Club La Vela. And when as a matter of fact, when we were playing Club La Vela, right next door, Survivor was playing. And so they came over, they were watching us, and the guitar player says, because we used to do our originals, but we had to do covers too, because you had to do 3 or 4 sets. So we were doing some, we were doing some Led Zeppelin tune. And so the guitar player from Survivor goes, hey man, can I come up and play with you? I said, yeah, here, man, go ahead, have at it, man, have fun. I'll go get a beer. but yeah, we would have that kind of stuff all the time. Matter of fact, Dream Theater, the band Dream Theater.
Yeah.
So I was down in Miami, and we opened up and closed the show for the Dixie Dregs. And so you had Steve Morse, who ended up in Deep Purple, and so they had their keyboard player had left, and they were bringing down a keyboard player from Juilliard, and he played that night reading off sheet music. Turns out it was a keyboard player. It was his first gig with them, who ended up in Dream Theater. It was Jordan Rudess. I actually saw him when he first came down from Juilliard to play with the Dixie Dregs at the very show that I opened up and closed for them on. It was great, man. It was a great experience.
And Dream Theater's still around. They're still touring.
Yeah, they're still touring.
Came around last year, and I was like, damn, those guys are around. And for any of you watching this, if you've never been a fan of Dream Theater, go see them live, man. It is unlike anything you ever. I mean, they got, was there like 20 people in the band, it seems? I mean, it's just, they're amazing. It looks like a show that should be in Vegas, and that's just their band,
If you want to settle the debate, if people know who Dokken is, if you want to settle the debate as to whether Don and Jeff like each other, Don and George, if they like each other, the bottom line is no. I was so we were supposed to play the week after Dokken, right? And so Dokken is playing over there that night at this club. And so we're in the back doing our thing in the band, the band room, and getting our stuff ready for the next gig coming up.
Right.
And I hear this screaming from the kitchen. On either side of the stove is Don's on one side, George's on the other. At the time, George was weightlifting. He was like a beast at the time, right?
Well, he always was real fit.
Yeah,
I mean, he was on the thinner side, but he never
Yeah.
wore a shirt on stage,
No, so but the cook is on the other side with his eyes wide open like this, looking my way, and they're screaming at each other, and George is like, "Oh, wring your scrawny neck!" You. So I was like, I guess these two guys don't like each other, man.
Yep. It's funny because I just saw within the last week, I was just flipping around YouTube, and apparently they got together for a couple songs. I think. I don't know whether Don was doing a solo gig or Dawkins still touring around, obviously another guitarist. And
Right.
George got up on stage with him for a couple songs. But I'll tell you that George sounded good, but Don's voice didn't sound that hot. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, well, the guitar, you can, unless something happens to your fingers or your arms, or you get really bad arthritis or tunnel syndrome.
Or that's like Vito Bratta we were talking about earlier, who got in a terrible accident, and that's why he had to stop playing, basically.
Yeah, it's sad because he was really a tasteful player for sure. I liked his playing a lot. And the guy who sang for them is a really nice guy, Mike Tramp. I've talked to him several times, and he's a nice guy. Yeah.
They're touring around right now. It's funny because I just saw an ad came out on Facebook just within the last week, said Mike Tramp. How they billed it was Mike Tramp and the Songs of White Lion or whatever.
Right.
East Coast tour. And you should have seen all the comments of it because the tour never made it further south than New York. It was like Boston and Rhode Island and New York and Pennsylvania and all that. And we're like, and all these comments are like, how about the Northeast tour? Not, they're coming nowhere in the South because I'd love to go. White Lion is one of the very, very few, and I've seen just about everybody, but one of those few like 80s bands that I never got the chance to see live. It just, and all those bands seem to open up every year for people. Like there was a year I saw Dawkins open up for bands like 6-7 times. Queensryche one year opened up for everybody. Cinderella opened up for everybody. And whatever tours White Lion were on, I always missed them. Just always freaking missed them. We were just talking, a buddy of mine and I were just talking the other day, and we're talking about the old days about, God, I remember seeing Bon Jovi open up for Rat, and then 6 months later after You Give Love a Bad Name came out, the tour was flipped. I saw Guns N' Roses open up for Motley Crue and the Girls tour. The same thing happened. It's just amazing how that happens,
I got to tell you, I got a couple more stories because I know you probably have to go soon, but there's a story you just brought up Guns N' Roses. And Guns N' Roses, I was going to the Musicians Institute in Hollywood in 1988. And I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard with my bass player, and there's this guy kind of slumped over walking like this, holding on to his girlfriend with his hat on backwards, baseball cap. I said, you know what?
Is it Axl?
I think that's Axl. And that's just when their album just came out. I walked up to him, and he was obviously he was on the something, the Mr. Brownstone or something. But he put his hand back and said, "What's up, brother?" He slapped my five, and he kept on walking. I was like, it's just too funny. I just running into him in 1988. And
again, back then he was all mellow and at least grateful and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know the guy, never met him, but apparently that kind of wore off later on.
He owned a Volkswagen. We had a game how many times we could spot Axl in Hollywood with the Volkswagen. I thought that was freaking hilarious. But
and when I was in the last time I was in LA, I kind of took the Frankie V myself tour, and I walked down to I went there for Motley Crue's last show. It was supposed to be the last show on New Year's Eve, and I was up there for a few days, or out there, whatever you want to call it. And I walked all of Hollywood Boulevard and everything. And my main goal was to see the apartment building, because there was that one famous apartment building that Motley Crue had the apartment in, and it was right up the road from the Whiskey A Go-Go. And Motley Crue had an apartment. Guns N' Roses had an apartment. That's where some of their videos were shot. But Motley Crue is probably my favorite band ever. And after reading the dirt and all the stuff that happened in that apartment, I had to go. And I mean, literally, I could see how all that happened in that apartment because they said, the show would go on at the Whiskey, and then afterwards the show would move up to their apartment. It couldn't have been 50 yards up the road. I mean, Whiskey's right on the corner of Sunset there, and then that road's kind of a hill. You go up that hill, and it's like 50 yards on the right there, that apartment building. And I was like, holy crap, this is where it all happened,
Yeah, a lot happened out there. I actually recorded with one of Frank Zappa's musicians when I was in LA. We actually did this recording. I lost it in Hurricane Katrina, really bent me out of shape, but I finally learned the process of the crazy recordings that they used to do. So I'm recording.
I can imagine Frank Zappa's recording sessions would be pretty out there.
So I was recording with this guy, took everything I had to keep up with him, because he was just an amazing keyboard player. And so he stops in the middle of it and goes, "We need to go in the other room." I said, so I get up and we go in the other room. There's a big grand piano there, a library with a bunch of books and like a reel-to-reel recorder in the corner. And he goes, "I want you to sit at the grand piano and hit on the keys with no thought about what you're hitting and sing My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean in the worst voice you possibly can."
What?
So he hits the recorder and I start banging on, start singing My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean.
Right.
And he starts throwing stuff around the room, books and stuff. It's all this noise, a cacophony going on. And he takes it in the other room. We finish the song out and he takes that and splices it into this middle segment. And it was just, I was like, wow. So that's how they do all this crazy cacophony stuff in the Frank Zappa music. And it was really an interesting experience for sure.
That's pretty neat, man. Who knows? Like I said, I can imagine everything with Frank Zappa. Rest in peace, was a little bit out there anyways, but yeah, that's interesting. So one more thing I want to say to you, one more thing I found out we have in common earlier. When I was reading that article about you, it said something about if you could meet three people, the top three people you'd want to meet, and you had Elon Musk, which for obvious reasons, I can't argue with you there. You had Paul McCartney, again, legendary Beatles. And then you're like me. The third one was, you remember who you put on there?
I don't. Actually, my memory's kind of...
You said the third person you'd like to meet is Bruno Mars.
Yes, absolutely. Bruno Mars he's brilliantly talented.
Awesome. Thank you. And I feel the same way. And everybody knows me as this rock and roll hairband guy. Every time they hear something, they're like, "Oh God, Frank will like that." They all got long hair and hairspray and there's a guitar solo in it. Yeah. But I'll tell you, when I saw Bruno Mars for the first time, I was like, holy crap, man, this guy's got it. Nothing against today's musicians or anything, but I still always say that people, for the most part, I'm not going to say everybody, don't put on shows like they used to. One of the things about going to all those 80s hairband shows, they all had, outfits on, they dressed the part, lights, fire, explosions, all that stuff.
Guy liner.
Yeah, exactly. Wear eyeliner and hairspray. I use Aquanet myself. I can't lie about that.
In the white can with the pink lines on it. Yeah, I remember it well. I could run into someone and probably put them in the hospital back in the day.
Yeah.
Blue black hair with it out to about here.
Yep. Yeah. Mine was up to here and down to here. But yeah, you see Bruno, and he's got the dance. He reminds me like a mix between Michael Jackson, James Brown,
and Prince.
Parliament. Everything. It's entertaining to watch. You don't even have to like the music. He just puts on a show, man. That's one of those. I don't see a lot of concerts of new bands, just because I haven't found any really new bands that I like that much. But I would love. Everybody knows me. Goes, for some reason I always go see Earth, Wind, and Fire because I love me some Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah. Yep.
And then Bruno, I would love to go see Bruno Mars, man, just for that reason. You see Earth, Wind, and Fire, there's 15 of them in the band. Everybody's dancing, everybody's singing, everybody's having a good time. It's different from a Kiss concert, but it's a great time. So I give you props on that Bruno Mars thing. I'm right there with you, man. Right there with you.
Absolutely. He took the torch from Michael Jackson and Prince. So.
And did it very, very well.
When he
did, what was it, the Grammys or the AMAs or something, where he did that Prince tribute.
Yep.
And dressed up like him. Holy crap, man. Nobody could have pulled that off like he did. And he did it effortlessly.
Absolutely talented. Yeah.
Yeah, so who knows? All right, Mark. Well, hey, thanks a lot for chatting with me today. That was fun, man. We'll have
Peace.
to hopefully I'll get to see you someday and we can continue on these stories. Not very often do I talk to somebody who can bring up stuff from my past that I hear, like all that Orlando stuff and all that. But hey, best of luck to you with the bands and the book and the PhD and everything else going on. And you're did I even mention you're a professor at the University of Arkansas, correct?
Well, actually, I manage an NSF center, which is three universities are part of it. It's the University of Arkansas, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and Florida International University. So
I've come to the conclusion in the time we've been talking that you do nothing half-ass.
I don't.
You're either all the way in, or not like I'm of one university. I'm this of 4 or 5 universities in.
I will have to
with this guy who was the first keyboardist in Kiss, but I've also played with this guy, who's played with this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, and yeah, it's great, man. It's good.
Well,
stuff.
I will tell you in our exiting. First of all, to everybody else who might watch this, is go check out Fiction 6 and Kick the Wicked. But Kick the Wicked has some new stuff out. You can find us everywhere on the internet.
You can find it on the Sunset Island Café channel on Roku, and I'm going to post all this stuff. Also, Farmer Bob, man, I'm going to look up Farmer Bob too.
Look it up. Motley Crue's on there too. We did Merry Go Round and Round. So but definitely check them all out, and I just hope everybody digs the music, and I appreciate you having me on here. So
I appreciate you being on. I'll put all the links everywhere so everybody can see them. I tell everybody I'm the easiest guy in the world to find. I got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, now the TV channel, radio. I mean, I'm all over the place. So yeah, I will give you props. So Mark, until we get to meet again or talk again or whatever, you have yourself a wonderful evening, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, man.
You too, buddy. Thank you, man.
All right, we'll see you.
Peace. Bye.